You know that very specific kind of silence that falls over a room when a small child says something they just absolutely positively could not know? It's not confusion. It's not disbelief. It's the silence of adults realizing, wow, we do not have a rational explanation for this. Let's dive right into this incredibly compelling explainer about a perfectly verified, deeply unsettling forensic mystery that started with nothing more than a piece of blank paper and a red crayon. We're going to kick off our timeline on a completely ordinary Tuesday back in the spring of 2002. Imagine a totally normal, cheerful 4-year-old boy named James. He loved cartoon dogs, chugged grape juice, and, like most kids, flat out refused to eat anything green. But here is the crucial detail. He had absolutely zero exposure to true crime, death, or violence. His family literally didn't even own a TV. No older siblings, no internet access. The scariest thing this kid had ever seen was a cartoon villain. Let's move into Section 1, the red crayon map, an ordinary Tuesday. Now, what's really fascinating here is the exact, deliberate sequence James used to draw a map for his mom, Catherine, right there at their kitchen table. He didn't just scribble randomly. No, he placed his red crayon on the paper and drew first a road, next a field, then a tree with a very specific, sharp leftward bend at the base, kind of like an elbow. And finally, he drew a small square shape buried in the ground beneath the tree's roots. The sheer contrast between the sweet toddler and the chillingly calm statement he made next is, well, profoundly unsettling. When Catherine initially laughed, that pure stress response your brain does when it's failing to process something crazy, she asked James who he was talking about. James just looked right at her with the casual certainty of a child explaining something super obvious and told her he was talking about himself. He said this was where he was before. Over the next 3 weeks, completely unprompted, James would be sitting in the bathtub or playing with his toys and just casually drop these staggering details. He remembered the feeling of being hit with his bizarre matter-of-factness. He described 2 men, one tall with dead grass hair and one short with a scar. He mentioned a loud, rattling, dark vehicle. He said in his past life he was older, worked near water, smelled like fish, had a name starting with a D, and desperately needed money. His parents were so freaked out they took him to a child psychologist, who actually found 0 signs of trauma and just chalked it up to an overactive imagination. Okay, moving on to Section 2. A real place. The search begins. So here's where things get really wild. James's drawings completely defied normal child psychology. Usually, a kid's imagination morphs from day to day, right? But James drew this map 3 more times over a couple of months, and every single time, the tree, the square, and the road were in the exact same spatial relationship. It's like a geometric blueprint locked in his head. He even started humming a low rhythmic sound to mimic a railroad and mentioned a distant water tower. Eventually, his Aunt Renee took a hard look at the maps and suggested the unthinkable. She said, "I think this is a real place, and we need to go find it." Feeling completely ridiculous, Catherine started driving a 60-mile radius from their home. 6 weeks into this literal wild goose chase, exactly 43 miles from her house, she turned onto an unfamiliar county road. And guys, she saw the railroad tracks, she saw the distant water tower, she saw the overgrown field with the broken fence, and right there, 30 feet from the road, was the tree with the trunk bent sharply to the left. When she pulled the car over, James, who was just chilling in the backseat eating crackers, looked out the window and calmly said, "This is it." Which brings us to Section 3, the cold case connection, Douglas Denny Caldwell. Let's compare these facts side by side, because the alignment between this toddler's memories and a 1979 missing persons file is just undeniable. After agonizing over sounding completely crazy, Catherine finally called the local sheriff. Well, it turns out a man named Douglas Irwin Caldwell, who went by Denny, vanished from that exact area in 1979. Look at this overlap. Denny worked at a fish processing facility near water, his name started with D, and he desperately needed money because he was secretly saving up to propose to his pregnant girlfriend. The details line up perfectly. 23. To put that into perspective, that is the number of years Denny Caldwell had been missing before a 4-year-old boy walked into a sheriff's office and pointed the way. For over 2 decades, this case had basically sat ice cold in a dusty records room. Now we enter the forensic phase. In Section 4, the forensic excavation, digging at the bent tree. Investigators actually brought in ground-penetrating radar purely to eliminate the possibility, fully expecting to find absolutely nothing. But they found an anomaly 4 feet down. On February 14, 2003, they recovered skeletal remains. and every single forensic discovery perfectly mirrored James's detached descriptions. James had told them the ground there was hard, like rock. Forensics confirmed a dense clay substrate right beneath the topsoil. They also found 2 points of impact to the skull. One was fatal, but the second one, as the report clinically noted, was redundant. Just like James said after they hit him. Now, while no criminal convictions were actually made, mostly due to the statute of limitations and the fact that the primary suspect, the tall guy with the dead grass hair, had already died in 1997, Denny's daughter did receive a deeply unconventional form of closure. She had been born 7 months after his disappearance. Now, 24 years old, she attended his funeral, saying that while the way they found him didn't fit any logical framework she had for understanding the world, it was definitely better than the unbearable weight of not knowing. This leads us to our final part, Section 5, Defying Rational Explanation, the Collapse of Coincidence. The sheer volume of verified facts here is honestly staggering. Dr. Jim Tucker and other researchers have noted that this is one of the most forensically verified instances of this phenomenon in existing literature. Just think about it. For this to be a mundane coincidence, a 4-year-old would have had to randomly guess the geographic location, the railroad layout, the broken fence, the exact shape of that bent tree, the fact that 2 perpetrators were involved, and even the exact subsurface soil composition. Alternative explanations simply collapse under the immense weight of this improbable list. It's actually fascinating how easily the standard skeptical theories are systematically dismantled by the verified timeline. You might be thinking, oh, the parents unconsciously suggested it to him, but Catherine had zero knowledge of a missing person from 1979, and the case hadn't even been in the local media for over 15 years. Or maybe you think he overheard a conversation, but the geographic precision of James's descriptions would require him to overhear an impossibly detailed masterclass on a murder scene, not just passing whispers at a grocery store. There is literally no consensus, rational explanation that accounts for all these verified details. I want to leave you with this final, really profound thought. When the forensic excavation finally wrapped up, someone on the team, in a purely unofficial, deeply human gesture, took a small flat stone from the edge of the field and placed it right at the base of that bent tree. It wasn't police protocol or anything. It was just a quiet testament to mark the fact that something, frankly, impossible had happened there. A door had been left wide open by a little boy who somehow carried a secret across 23 years of silence, from the dark straight into the bright, ordinary kitchen of a Tuesday evening. So, what do you think really happened here?